It's Marco from Craft Coffee Spot, and today we're going to be talking about the French press. French press is one of the most popular brewing methods out there, and for good reason. You can make a full-bodied and rich coffee, and it's really easy to make. But what if I told you you can make better French press coffee using almost the exact same recipe? Well, today I'm going to give you 5 tips on making a French press coffee based on my experience of making hundreds of French press recipes. So the first tip, measure out your coffee. Most people are either using too little coffee in their French press or they're not even bothering to measure at all. I found you should use a 1 to 15 ratio. That's 1 part coffee to 15 parts of water. Now, in a metric system, that's about 65 grams per liter of water. In the US, think about that as 1 cup of water is about 16 grams, or about 1 tablespoon is about 5 grams. So think of it as 1 cup of water, 3 tablespoons. If you can remember that, you'll be making better coffee right there. Most drip pots do about a 1 to 18 or a 1 to 20 ratio, so it's too little coffee, and people are too used to that watery, low-body taste. Use more coffee in your French press, and you want to do that because, remember, it's an immersion technique. Your coffee is just floating in there, and it takes longer to extract, and it's a coarse grind, so you need more coffee. And if you think about different strengths, we've actually made a table on our blog where we can show you different strengths and the amount of coffee you need for each of those, and we even have a calculator on there. So you can put in your strength that you want, the amount of water you're using, and know exactly how much coffee you need. Now, there's one more thing. I told you it was 1 cup is about 3 tablespoons. Well, I tell you not to use tablespoons either because it's a pretty imprecise measurement. Actually, when I was preparing this recipe yesterday, I found my tablespoons ended up being about 10% apart from each other. It's about a half gram difference based on whether I overfilled or underfilled the tablespoon. So what I really think you should get is a scale. And this is one right here, a pretty basic scale you can find for under $30, help you measure out your coffee and weight, which is actually how the ratio should be done. And so once you have the scale, you'll buy it once, not that expensive, and you'll make better coffee for life. So today, I'm actually going to use about 30 grams of coffee, and that'll make about 2 cups, which will end up being about 1 nice large mug. Throw a full 30 grams into the dosing cup. So this brings us to tip 2, which is to grind coarse. You want to grind more coarse than your pre-ground coffee. That pre-ground coffee is meant for a drip pot, and that tends to be pretty medium grind. Now, a thing with your French press, if you look, there's only a metal filter here. And this makes it very easy for grounds to come up into your coffee. And so if you're using a medium, like your typical pre-ground coffee, you're going to get a lot of those grounds right in your cup, which is the bane of the French press. Now, I find if you have a burr grinder, like my trusty Baratza Encore, you want to use setting 28. So we've now got our coffee ground, got the water heated up. And generally what I have found is, honestly, if your water is just off the boil, that is enough. Anywhere from 200 to 210 degrees Fahrenheit, or let's say like 95 to 98 degrees Celsius is pretty good here. Because we're going to be spending 4 minutes in the French press, that's enough time. Now that we have our coffee and water ready, this leads to tip 3, which is to bloom the coffee. So the idea here is you're going to want to pour a little bit of water into it and then just give it a stir. Start our timer right when the water is poured. I tend to do about twice as much water as coffee, so in this case about 60 grams, and give it a stir. And now what you'll see is you have the bloom happening, which is the carbon dioxide escapes right when the hot water hits. And you can see this layer of foam right above the coffee, and that's the CO2 escaping. And that CO2, the carbon dioxide, that is, it repels water and it prevents the coffee from letting the flavors extract. So you want to pour a little bit of water, give it a nice stir, and let it go for about, let's say, 20 to 30 seconds before you pour in the rest of the water. Fill it up to our total weight. So it's 450 grams for me. Scale makes this nice and easy. Now let's get to tip 4, which is to stir once. I stir once and only once, and 1 good stir, and that's it. That is enough for me. Now, this is where a lot of the French press recipes diverge. Some people say, don't stir at all. Some will say stir halfway. Some will say stir after 4 minutes and break the crust and scoop out the crust. What I think is key is you should stir once because you do need that stir to extract some more of the flavors. The bloom and the single stir will really give you that rich body and will make sure to pull all the flavors out of your coffee. What is also key is that you try to minimize any agitation and stirring later, because that'll just lead to too much bitterness coming into your cup and too many grounds coming out. So I find the 1 stir in the beginning and nothing else is the easiest and simplest and most efficient way to get flavor out. So now we're going to wait until a total of 4 minutes have elapsed, like all the other French press recipes out there. Like I said, time that 4 minutes from the water first hits the coffee to the end. And this kind of leads to the last tip, which is just to press down gently. Like I said, this is where a lot of recipes diverge. And other places will tell you should now break the crust, scoop it out, and that's actually will lead to better flavor because it'll remove a lot of the fines. But what I found just to keep things on track and to keep this really simple for most people, not at any time to your morning, is just to press down really slowly on the plunger. And the key here is you don't want to see any of the grounds past that metal filter. Slowly, steady. Talking to myself here. And then as you go down, don't go down all the way either. You probably want to go 80% of the way down to the bottom. Because if you go further, you're going to stir up those fines. And you don't want those fines to pass the filter. There you go. We got to the bottom. Actually, I can still see some small air bubbles here, which means I actually pressed down very slowly, not even to disturb those pockets, which is good. It'll mean I have minimal fines in my cup, minimal sludge at the bottom. And now we're just ready to pour it out slowly into a cup. Also just pour slowly too, because you don't want to get small fines in your cup. If you dump this out, all those small grounds will get right into your cup. So that's why I say press down slowly, pour slowly, and that's a good middle ground to avoid fines without spending a ton of time breaking the crust and scooping everything out. And if you want to see any more of these details, including our measurement calculator table, go on our blog. I'll put a link in the description below, along with a link to the scale, which I think will make your coffee infinitely better, not just French press too. And if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below, and I'm happy to follow up. And if you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe to see future videos.